My name is Marcia Kadanaoff. I am an advisor to Swytch. I cannot see you, but I do want to ask you, what percentage of energy do you believe is sourced through renewables today? More than 9%, and that is actually, it's 10%. And the problem is we're going to cook, yes, we're going to cook the planet if we don't fix that. And this isn't, I'm not saying this to scaremonger you, it's just a fact. And it's a fact that was discussed very widely at Davos last month. And nearly everyone there, with one exception, a guy in a crumpled suit with a bad haircut, agreed that we needed to do something about global warming, but was perplexed because we don't really have the governance mechanisms, the decentralized governance mechanisms to do something about it. And that's the problem that we address very broadly. So we're very happy to be here at D10E to talk about a decentralized mechanisms for global incentives for renewable energies. So what's wrong with today's incentives? Well, a lot of things are wrong. They're very fragmented. You have to follow them in each locality. They change frequently with the political whims. They don't reward the right activity. For the most part, they reward putting up solar panels or putting up a wind farm, not its effect on carbon output. And they target the biggest producers, yet solar and hydro and wind are hyper-local. How are we going to get the small guys to play nicely on the grid with everybody else? Because the small guys are going to end up producing a lot. So these are the problems that we solve. And what you need to know is that we built our solution with some of the biggest energy producers in the world. Energy in most countries, the US of course is an anomaly, energy in most countries is the #1 sector. What people told us at REBA, which is the Renewable Energy Buyers Alliance, and you can see on your screen the charities that are behind REBA, but more importantly, the Fortune 10, Fortune 50, and Fortune 100 companies that are behind REBA include Walmart, Facebook, Apple, Salesforce, so all the big data center guys, Amazon. So one of the biggest problems their sustainability efforts have is there's no way to track and trace that the energy produced over here actually had an effect on reducing carbon over there. A related problem is that individuals, as I mentioned, cannot play nicely on the network, and we really need them to do so. The incentives themselves are not just fragmented, they're fatally flawed. One European program, which was pretty tightly managed, studied this and said 40% of the dollars were either wasted or went to outright fraud. And finally, citizens and NGOs who want to get on board, because the move to 100% renewable energy is a global movement. It's not just the green parties, it's something that people feel so strongly about that Fortune 50 companies cannot hire millennials unless they have sustainability programs. That's called return on CSR. So cities and NGOs want to help, but they don't want the administrative burden of having to run their own incentive programs. So this is where we enter. So what is Swytch? Swytch is a global incentive platform, and there are 3 components to Swytch that I want to familiarize you with. The first is proof of production. What is proof of production all about? Well, it means that you earn a token, or more than one token, every time you produce renewable energy, and it doesn't matter what source of renewable energy it is, you just have to be on the Swytch network. We have an oracle that determines how much carbon gets reduced once you produce energy. And that oracle is dynamic. So if I put up a wind farm, more likely solar, in Africa, I'm going to earn far more Swytch tokens than if I put solar on my home here. Reason? We're oversaturated with solar here. We don't need more, but Africa does. And finally, it's a network of trusted nodes. And as you can see on the diagram, what happens is we stamp the transaction to the blockchain, the oracle values the transaction, and then it gets sent through to the producer. And so we're going to build an entire economy around these transactions based on Swytch. So critically important, everybody who I talk to says to me, but Marcia, you know that Bitcoin is taking a lot of energy in the system and that that's a terrible problem. Well, ours is based on a proof of production protocol. So literally, we turn the sun into tokens, which I think is wicked cool. And most importantly, we're testing right today in a 1.5 gigawatt trial in Germany with our partner E2M. E2M is the largest provider of virtual power plants in Europe. So that's pretty exciting, I think. And so again, it's minting versus mining. So I used to have on the slide, it said how we win. But we're a nonprofit foundation, the Token Commons Foundation, and this project is our project, Swytch. So it's really about how the world wins. And how we've architected the system is very low friction points. We're going after the largest producers of energy today, and those energy producers are highly motivated to move to renewables. Renewables are now the cheapest source of energy, bar none. So they have good economic reasons to want to do it. Earning an incentive on top of that is gravy. So we're going to go after the biggest producers first. All they have to do is download a tiny piece of software onto their stacks. For everyone else, meaning the prosumers, the people who have solar on their roofs or in their villages, we're going to make compatibility cheap and easy through a chipset and via an IoT device. And the final thing we're doing is we're targeting cities. Cities in South Korea, and Barcelona's coming up very fast right after them, that see themselves as innovative, want to be leaders in the fourth economy, and they're eager to use Swytch as what's called a staking token. So basically, they could run their own local sustainability efforts and pay for it out of Swytch tokens, and they get administration baked in. So they don't have to hire someone to go out and do painful audits to make sure that fraud and waste I spoke about earlier isn't happening. So this is what the Swytch economy will look like at scale. You'll have a lot of commercial and residential producers generating energy, earning Swytch tokens, and then you'll have a lot of people trading those tokens to create models for the Oracle and to support their energy trading activities, cities to support their staking token efforts, companies because they want to prove to their employees and shareholders that they are offsetting any of their non-renewable energy use, et cetera, and infrastructure companies, which we'll talk about in just a second. We are raising $60 million in a combination of a private and public token sale. We've raised about $15 million so far, and we expect to have a public token sale sometime in April. The $3.65 billion cited here, these are reserved for the most part for producers of energy and will be spent cha-chunk over the next 22 years. So this economy can flourish. Sometimes people look at the number and go, oh, that's too big a number. We are building our company to scale with partnerships. These are all the Korean cities that you can see up here that have agreed. We have memorandums of understanding, MOUs with them, that have agreed to experiment with Swytch as a staking token. Black & Veatch builds the data centers for the biggest companies in the world. Their CTO is helping us co-design the Oracle as well as the entire system. E2M is that company I mentioned that's doing our 1.5 gigahertz trial on over 100 energy-producing devices. Lend-Lease is the company that helped Hawaii go 100% renewable. Along the way, they learned a lot about how tracking and verification was lacking, and so they're very excited to partner with us. The bottom layer is all the blockchain folks that we're partnering with, Autonomy for Security, Berkshire Cloud for the fundamental logic of what we call the Oracle that does this dynamic token allocation in real time, critically important, and Bancor, which will provide liquidity for everyone trading in the market. Our team combines people with at least 10 years of experience in energy and energy trading with rock stars in blockchain. Evan Caron joined as our CEO. He's been thinking about this problem for over a year. He joins John Redpath and John Clippinger. John Redpath is an energy trader who turned his entire business around to renewables, who have been talking about how the blockchain and trusted identity could solve problems in the energy field. People who produce energy are not willing to share data about their production because energy plants are subject to targeting by terrorists and other folks. So it's essential that we have the blockchain running underneath this for security. John Clippinger's at MIT. He was previously at Harvard Law School, has done a lot of the pioneering work on blockchain and trusted identity. And then Young-Suk Park, I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, thank you, is a rock star in Korea, and she's our VP of Business Development. So we've got a lot of traction. Yes, thank you. And we've got a lot of traction there. I'd like to think our advisory team is full of rock stars. Myself and Peter Hirschberg, my colleague, were hired to help with the city strategy. Mickey McManus is at Autodesk, co-wrote the book Trillions. It's about the Internet of Things and is our Internet of Things advisor. And the other folks you can see, Ken Larson from MIT Media Lab. So a bunch of dignitaries. And I didn't. Oh, I'm sorry. Tony Seba is one of the major, thank you. I have a shill in the crowd. Tony Seba is one of the major researchers. He's invented this notion that God parity happens when it's as cheap to generate energy as God himself, and we're there, or almost there, so that's kind of exciting. And that's with the drop-in solar panels. And then we have 3 new advisors that I'm very excited to talk, and this is the first time I've ever talked publicly about it. The first is DNA Fund. They're an advisory firm. That's Brock Pierce's firm. Steve Jurvetson, probably the biggest investor in solar on the planet, has joined as an investor and advisor. And then Galia, and I'm not going to be able to pronounce her last name, who was one of the co-founders of Bancor, is helping us with token economics, and is one of the nicest advisors you could ever hope to meet. Sometimes I get asked, well, what about you versus the competition? And the answer is, we are a utility token that provides a layer of incentives atop of existing energy trading. We're not trying to disrupt that. Everybody else in the category is trying to replace how you trade energy today with new ways of trading energy tomorrow. That's a heavy lift for something that is so well established in our economy. So because we're not disruptive but additive, we feel like we're going to get early traction, and so far our partners have been able to propel us to early success. So how to contact us?
All the time. We have
Okay.
like 10 seconds.
Okay, great, thanks.
Well, thank you so much.